some man for one man, at least. And wouldn't mind me if there was one man in the room who didn't need a microphone. Thanks very much, Derek, and to the Labour Party for the invitation to come down and talk to you. And do you know what's just extraordinary about this campaign is that everywhere, particularly over the last month or more, where people are meeting to talk about this, rooms are packed out. It's really extraordinary. It's really inspiring. And can I say, first of all, that I have and I make no assumptions that everybody in this room is on my side or indeed our side in this referendum. One of the reasons why I really value these kinds of public forums actually is because there's a chance then for a bit of a dialogue. Because I do want to first of all maybe just reflect before I get on to where I'm coming from this referendum personally and then where Amnesty International is coming from. Try and kick aside one myth that I think has done a huge disservice to the debate. Everybody who holds a view on this referendum has a right to express their opinion and a voice that they should use to do so, and we have to be able to have the kinds of conversations that will help us all to make informed decisions when we go into that ballot booth on the 22nd of May. And remember, whatever one side in this referendum are saying about people being silenced, that's not been my experience. And when we go into that ballot booth, we do so as citizens of this republic, and it's us individually, as women, as men, with a piece of paper and a pencil, and we'll act according to our conscience and our values. And that's what's tremendous about our democracy. And I really do think that some of the scaremongering that we've heard, particularly in recent weeks, about people not being able to express their views if they disagree with the proposal. You know, I don't buy the opinion polls, frankly. I think support is strong. I think we hold majority support for the proposition that comes before us all as people on the 22nd of May, but I don't believe it's at the level that the opinion polls are suggesting it is. I think there's majority support, but I don't think it's anything like an overwhelming majority. But it has not been my experience that people don't feel able to say what they think. I mean, out and about canvassing, and I'm sure the same is true for anybody who's doing that, any of you have been doing it, I've met plenty of people who've been able to raise a concern, a reasonable concern that they want to inform and have a conversation. I've met people, quite frankly, who hold entrenched positions where they don't want to have a conversation about why they hold those positions, and they haven't been able to haven't been afraid to articulate or unable to articulate it. And I've also met people, quite frankly, who have articulated things that are terrifying, that are vitriolic and that are unpleasant. But that's the nature of this kind of conversation. And it serves no one to suggest that the debate is being shut down. So I think one of the really valuable things about an evening like this evening, and I hope when we get into some kind of discussion, we may well hear questions from people who have concerns or issues that they'd like to discuss, and I think that's important. So, all of that said, why do I believe passionately in a yes vote on the 22nd of May? Well, first of all, as Derek said, I work for Amnesty International here in Ireland. I'm director of the organisation here in Ireland. And Amnesty International globally since 2007 has had a position adopted by our membership through a global democratic process that called on states to end discrimination in civil marriage laws and will recognise families of choice across borders where necessary. And Amnesty International here in Ireland, as a consequence of a membership motion put forward at our annual conference in 2008, were mandated and therefore required by our membership to actively support and campaign for marriage equality here in Ireland. And we do so because we see this as a fundamental human rights issue. And to be clear about what I mean by that, a clear and cross-cutting principle in human rights law is the principle of non-discrimination. And our considered, careful view is that there is no objective justification for discrimination against same-sex couples in civil marriage law. The no side have repeatedly talked about how this isn't about equality, and because what did I hear one of the voices say in the last little while? I think it was a bishop who said it. There is no discrimination because anybody in this country can get married. So as a gay man, I can go and get married and I can marry a woman, and therefore there's no discrimination. Kind of surreal stuff, isn't it? And the simple fact is, on the basis of my sexual orientation, I am prohibited from entering into a legal institution that has huge cultural, social, political and legal significance in this republic. And that is no small thing. It's easy to trivialise the impact of that discrimination. It's easy to say things like, sure, we, by which they mean they, already have civil partnership. I don't want to sit in the back of any bus. Laura already referred to that. And civil partnership is not equality. Civil partnership, and a lot has been done to advance and deal with some of the discriminations and inequalities that exist between civil partnership and civil marriage. But even if every single last one of them was eliminated, it would not be equality. You know, the notion of separate but equal was one that was enshrined in jurisprudence in 1896 in the US Supreme Court in a case taken by a man called Homer Plessy, who objected to the Jim Crow laws that required racial segregation on public transport in Louisiana where he was growing up. And the US Supreme Court justices, in their incredible wisdom in 1896, said that there was no discrimination because blacks couldn't get on the cars that were whites, and whites couldn't get on the cars for blacks, and therefore there was no discrimination because everybody was being treated the same. The principle of separate equal was born. And that was overturned in the US Supreme Court in the 1960s when segregation in education was brought to an end. And I'll tell you what, as an Irish man, as an Irish citizen, I'd be damned if I'll stand by and somebody tries to tell me or anybody in this republic that archaic legal principles that were overturned more than 50 years ago in the United States should be applied to this republic. I won't stand for that. It's not good enough. So separate but equal is not equality. But then at the same time, civil partnership can never be made fully equal to marriage because of the particular status that our Constitution grants marriage. So the Constitution pledges to protect the status of marriage. And my understanding is that all of the legal advice that successive governments have gotten is that they cannot create a parallel legal institution with full equality, full legal equality on a par with marriage, because that would be unconstitutional because of the special status accorded to marriage. Therefore, we have two choices. We either abolish the special status accorded to marriage in our Constitution, or we make marriage available to any two people in this republic, regardless of their gender or sexual orientation. You know, as a Republican, and I share your passion for that, the answer is pretty obvious to me. And it is precisely because the Yes campaign believe in marriage. It is precisely because we believe in family. It is precisely because we believe in equality that we want to see marriage equality. We actually are the Family Values Campaign. Okay? I grew up in rural Ireland in a family. And when I was 5, 6, 7 and 8 years of age, my dreams and aspirations were at the heart of how I expected my life to be. I was going to grow up, I was going to get married, and I was going to have a family. And when I realised or came to understand the nature of my sexuality, and it took me a long time to do that because I grew up in an Ireland where I was criminalised because of my sexuality. It took me a long time to even get to a point where I could understand my sexuality was more than a sexual act. And because that's how traditionally we've seen. And actually, I think it's at the heart of why so many people are so judgmental of same-sex relationships, because they get their heads caught up in sexual acts. I mean, I don't know why anybody would spend their time thinking about what other people do in their bedroom. But with the greatest respect, if I were to sit here thinking about I know it's an odd thing for me to say, but if I were to sit here thinking about what opposite-sex couples do in their bedroom, I kind of think it was all a bit weird. But actually, more importantly, I think the idea that I would want to do that is even weirder, so I don't want to do it. And instead, I recognise the value, the passion, the purpose, the importance of loving, caregiving, committed relationships. What they mean to us as individuals, what they mean to us as families, whether we are couples with or without children, what they mean to us as families and what they mean to us as a society. And I think that's why marriage matters. And that's why I want to be married. In fact, that's why in 2011, after 12 years together, I went to New York, because New York enacted marriage equality, and myself and Paul got married after 12 years together, and we're now together 16 years. We could have had a civil partnership here in Ireland, but I did not want to be civil partner. And I wonder, would any of those who oppose marriage equality be prepared, and we've heard it asked many times, and I've never heard anybody say they would you swap your marriage for a civil partnership? So, at its very heart, we need to understand and recognise the significance and the importance of legal equality for same-sex couples in this country and for our families. You know, who I am, and I've said this a few times as well, but it's, for me, a really crucial point in this. Who I am is not defined by the gender of the person that I love. it really says nothing about me. It took me a very long time to realise that. It took me a long time to have the confidence to allow myself to really engage with the quality, the dignity, the purpose, and the value of my capacity to love. Because I was damaged by the society that I grew up in a way that didn't allow me to even see it. So I'm not surprised that for many people it can be a difficulty to see it. If you've not been forced to go on that journey, maybe you don't quite have to do it. It took me a long time to see it. But I know that the quality of who I am is not defined by the gender of the person I love. Rather, it's defined by the quality, the dignity with which I love. And that says more about me than anything else. And I've got to tell you, I love fiercely. I got that from my dad, who loved everybody around him fiercely. And it says much about who I am. And one thing I know for certain, when my head is on that pillow and I take my last breath, I know that I won't think about any of the things that I've done in my life. I know I won't think necessarily about the work that I've done, or the challenges that I've taken on, or even the great holidays that I've had. And I know I will think about, and if I'm really, really blessed, I will be surrounded by the love that I've experienced in my life, because that's who I am. And I think that's who all of us are. And what really, really inspires me about this referendum is what's happening across this country. You know, we've heard Laura talking about the queues in parallel institutions across the country of people turning up to register to vote. I mean, I have never seen queues outside Garda stations of people trying to get on a supplementary register. And it's happened right across this country. I wonder what the 22nd is going to look like. Will we see queues outside polling stations? That will be an exceptional thing. You know, I'm hearing from people who have never registered to vote before, and not all of them young people either, who are now registering to vote for the first time because they passionately care about this. This referendum and this discussion has animated and mobilised us as a society to think about, I mean, this is a political process, I suppose, in a way, but it's really recaptured the idea about what a political process like this is about. This really is. It's not a political referendum, it's a people's referendum. It has its origins in civil society action calling for and campaigning for marriage equality, demanding it. And then finally, when that demand became so clear and so vocal, and I remember the moment in 2009, I was at an Amnesty International meeting in Turkey of all places, and the first March for Marriage was happening in 2009, and I saw a report on the RTE News website, and 5,000 people were marching. And I remember thinking, they're not all gay. Those 5,000 people are not all gay. And I knew then that something really important was happening. So this referendum is a people's referendum. And when that demand grew to a point that it became unstoppable, it had significant political support, and I have no difficulty at all in paying tribute to the Labour Party for their support on this issue over the years, and the fact that in the programme for government they ensured that this was an issue that would be addressed. It then went to the Constitutional Convention, a body of Irish people, 66 citizens, brought together to be a cross-representative sample of who we are as a society, and they, with 33 elected representatives, considered this question, and they made a recommendation, not that the government should create the possibility of marriage equality in our constitution, but that the government should offer the Irish people an opportunity to direct that marriage equality be possible under our constitution. It was a really important moment. So I'm enormously excited by all of the possibilities that this referendum offers. I'm excited by where it's come from. It is a people's referendum, and the people are engaging with it. And I hope the debate continues up until the 22nd of May. It's a really profound question. I'm passionate about the question, but I have to say, the reason why, you know, my head could lift off my shoulders sometimes when I think about this. I get so excited about it, genuinely. We're being asked a question on the 22nd of May that fundamentally asks us, do we believe in and will we assert a republic of equals? You know, and we're great people for looking back on our foundation, on our birth, through frankly rather rose-tinted glasses. And very often when we celebrate the birth of our republic, we don't celebrate the ideas it was founded upon, we celebrate the blood sacrifice, we celebrate martyrdom. We don't engage with the ideas. There's something bizarre about that. And yet if you go back to all of those founding documents, what are they about? They are about equality. They are about a republic, creating a republic of equals, in which very clearly the responsibility of the state, as exercised through the people that we elect to do so on our behalf, is focused on the good of the people, all of the people. working to secure and guarantee the prosperity and happiness of the nation and all of its parts, acting to ensure that all citizens are equal in rights and in dignity, and cherishing that great, often misquoted but really important statement, cherishing all of the children of the nation equally. We haven't done that yet, I agree completely, we haven't managed to achieve that yet. But on the 22nd of May, we're being asked, does that principle, does equality matter? And I think it's profoundly important that we're being asked that question on this issue. Because if you think about the journey that Laura spoke about a moment ago, 22 years ago, homosexuality was illegal in Ireland. When I came out in 1984 in Dublin and went to the National Gay Federation Club in Dublin, the guards used to come in and walk around the club and they'd take names and addresses, and it was an incredibly intimidating experience. I was 18. That was the climate that we worked in. In 1983, a young man was beaten to death horribly in Fairview Park in Dublin and mutilated. And those who murdered him didn't serve a day in prison. And when they walked out of court free men, they had a victory march. That was in 1983, 10 years later, decriminalisation. And here we are now. Think about that journey, the pace of it. Let's be proud of that. Let's not be frightened of change. Let's embrace the pace of that change. And then think, in that shorter period of time, we've gone from there, from that dark, dark place, to being on the cusp of saying that all people, regardless of the gender of the person that they love, are equal in this republic, and their loving, caregiving relationships are equally valued, and they too are families, and worthy of the protection of our Constitution. Now, that's one hell of a commitment to equality. So we're being asked a very specific question, and if we answer it yes, we're making a quite extraordinary commitment to one of the key founding principles of our republic. And that is where it all starts to get really exciting, doesn't it? Because then we've asserted something really significant, and then we move forward from there, together. We've embraced a debate and a discussion on an issue that would have been impossible to have, I think, probably even 10 years ago. And we've done it with a maturity, with a purpose, with a passion, with an excitement, and with a positivity that I find incredibly inspiring. However much people want to go on about people being nasty to each other on Twitter. Twitter, everybody, and I suffer from a condition called Twitteria. I'm always on it, I live on the damn thing. Twitter is not the real world, okay? This is the real world. This is the world of real human relationships where we actually engage with each other in meaningful ways. And in these spaces, incredible conversations are happening, and we're finding out things about each other that we did not know or did not expect. And then I'm going to shut up now because I've gone on way too long probably. But one of the final things that I say is that I've learned in the past month in particular not to make any lazy assumptions about what Irish people think or feel or believe. So, the conventional wisdom would tell us that certain sections of the population would be supportive of this proposal and others will struggle with it. And that actually, particularly if people are over 65, they're probably not going to be so supportive. Some of the most incredible conversations that have moved me to tears in really positive, powerful ways over the last month have happened with people a lot over 65. And there have been people who have come up and talked about how I haven't gone and asked them. We've been out on a canvas in the street somewhere and they've come up to tell me why they're determined to vote yes. And the generosity of one that I remember in Wexford last week was a really simple but really interesting moment where a couple came up to tell me that they were going to vote yes. And I said, and why? And they went, we've been married for 40 years. Why would we deny anybody this? And that generosity, I just thought, was one of the most amazing, wonderful, joyful things that I've heard in the last while. And that's happening on campuses across this country, day in and day out. I'm hearing older people say, I'm doing this for my grandson, I'm doing this for my brother, I'm doing this for my uncle, I'm doing this because I believe in this and because we have been blessed with love and blessed by marriage, and we want everybody in this country to be equally blessed. Now, that's something else, isn't it? So on the 22nd of May, as Laura said, we really do have a chance to make history. We have a chance, more importantly than anything else, to make history for ourselves. This referendum, we're being told, is about children. I don't think it's about children in the way the no side are saying it is. I think it's fundamentally dishonest, the issues that they've presented. It's a legal nonsense. A no vote on the 22nd of May will not address the issues that they're presenting as difficulties. On the 23rd of May, whether or not Ireland votes no, I will still be a parent. Our two wonderful children, Sean and Sophia, will still be our two wonderful children. They will be at the centre of our lives, the people and the relationships that we are proudest of. But the question is, will we be equally valued as a family by our Constitution? So no same-sex couples will not parent if this referendum does not pass. But the same-sex couples who do, and more importantly, their children, will be afforded full and proper protection and equality before the law. So it is about children, it's about those children. It's about young gay children who will grow up in this country. We know the impact of discrimination and stigmatisation on them. 1 in 5 LGBT people in this country under 25 have attempted suicide because of stigma, discrimination and homophobia. That's a real statistic. It's one that can't be denied. It's a simple fact, it's a proven fact at this stage. But I think it's bigger than that. I actually think it's about all of our children. It's about our children, and it's about our children's children, and finally it's about asserting a republic in which every child born into our society knows from birth that they are equal citizens, regardless of the gender of the person with whom they go on to form adult, lifelong, caregiving, committed, and intimate relationships. Now that's a hell of a prize. Thanks very much.